Welcome, everybody. We're going to try to go through the approval of the minutes from the last June 12th meeting. Do anybody have any comments about that, or is there a need to make any edits?
I sent 2 edits to you and to Julie. A couple of edits. I mean,
Yeah,
some
I put those in.
were just simply typos, but the one change of word was you have planned for the election of CSAC officers. We don't get elected. We get appointed. So that was it. So apart from that, looked fine. And there was also Andy and Pamela, and I don't remember who.
That was Pamela Dritt.
Yeah, I was guessing it was Pamela Dritt.
And Andy, I don't know if his has the same last name or not, but he is her partner.
But, oh, okay. But we don't need to record visitors, do we? Non-committee members, or do we?
We kind of do. I sent Julie a couple of changes.
Yeah, I saw
about
that.
15 minutes ago. And I put their name in, and a few other very small wording changes just to clarify things.
Yeah, I saw that, Brad. Thank you. I just didn't have time to get to it.
Can I have a motion to approve these minutes after the changes that Brad put in and Janet are added to it?
I mean, does anybody want any clarification of what Brad did? I mean,
well, the only thing I said was substantive was there was a point under the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan where the minutes had said something like Brad suggested that the document consider gas usage because the numbers, and I said the document use natural gas usage values from national grid as a key metric because those numbers we know accurately, and I don't think the updated document did use those, but we can still keep an eye on those. I think those are important. That was the only. Everything else was a word or a spelling or something.
okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or feedback before we make a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
All those in favor? Any discussion? All those in favor?
I second the amendment, the motion.
That would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? No? Okay.
Okay, that was 8.
Motion passes. Next thing on the agenda that we have is about when meeting in August is going to happen. And I sent out a doodle poll. I haven't actually looked at the doodle poll today to see where we're at. And if you give me a minute, I will.
I have it pulled up, Doug.
Okay, why don't you tell me what's the preferable day?
The best day is August 27th, Thursday at 7 p.m.
Thursday, 7 p.m. Okay. Was everybody able to do it then?
Everybody who did the doodle poll, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, let's shoot for that then.
I can send a calendar invite and then put the Zoom info in there when I have it.
Okay.
Hey, does it show up that I responded? Because I did, but now when I look at it, it doesn't show my responses.
Oh, yeah, I don't see your response.
Did you click the submit button at the
Maybe
end?
I forgot to click submit. I do that kind of thing sometimes.
Does
Okay.
that day work for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't think there should ever be a submit button on websites. It's,
Where is the submit button?
It
Like,
says
now that
send.
you're asking, I don't see it.
Underneath on the right, it says as a button send.
Send cannot attend. Oh. Unclicked whatever I had clicked, I guess. Okay. Yep, I guess I didn't see that. Sorry.
Just regarding that, the week before that, I'm between the 18th and the 23rd, I'm tied up pretty much. And I'm just trying to make sure that the draft agenda gets set up and sent around to everybody. And I'm working with Brad potentially to get that to happen. If I could do it the week before that, between the 11th and the 15th, that week, maybe that's the best time to send out the draft agenda, whatever we decide on today.
yeah, I'm going to be on a sailing trip during that week.
Okay, it may be
so-
abbreviated agenda. I mean, I don't have a lot of time to work on it in that time. I'm going to be really tied up in that frame, but I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
But it's the week before, not have done it. Any other comments about the meeting dates? Do you have any thoughts? Do we want to even attempt to target a date for September? How do people feel about that?
I think we could wait, but I don't feel strongly either way.
Yeah, let's do it let's schedule it month by month.
Okay. Okay. The next thing we have on our agenda then is to prep for what prep is is going on for town meeting and what announcements will be needed.
We
Does,
certainly need to make our support for Article 40 clear.
Well, I think Article 40 has probably been postponed. As I understand it, the town meeting, they're going to do a one-day town meeting where essential articles are. And according to Matt Johnson I talked to, that article is probably not, it is not in there. It could be brought forward by a citizen. Do you understand any differently?
Hi, Terry.
You're correct, Brad. There will be as few articles as possible, and out of those, there'll be as many as possible on the consent calendar. So right now, Article 40 is one of the ones that they're talking about postponing to a future town meeting. Because this town meeting is going to be held outside, and we're going to try to finish in a few hours. So there will be a motion at town meeting to postpone, and it will list a number of articles, and Article 40 is one of those. So if 10 citizens want to pull that off and debate it, I think the moderator will pull it off. But then, you know, you have to think about the safety of the group and the social distancing versus the importance of the articles. That's been the problem with each article we're trying to figure out. Also, one more comment is there will be public hearings and a handout sent to a packet of handouts mailed to every house. So you will see exactly what is going on with all the articles.
Is there a date set for the town meeting yet?
Yes, we're hoping to do it September 13th, which is a Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And the rain date is Monday at 5 o'clock, Monday, September 14th. And if you go on the town website, there is a long, well, a multi-page protocol document that the moderator has posted. If you go into town meetings, all about, you know, how we're going to vote, masks, the handouts, postponing articles and all of it.
Thank you.
So as I understand it, there won't be presentations in the usual sense.
Good point. They will all be done by public hearing, August 17th, 18th, and 19th. We're going to have public hearings, and then those public hearings will be posted on the website. They will be the presentations. So when we get past the consent calendar, each article, the proponent, I think, is going to have 1 minute to talk on the article. And then there'll be questions. And that's it. We're trying to have a vote right away. The other towns in this area have finished their whole town meeting in 2 or 3 hours. And that seems to be safe enough outdoors. So that's what we're shooting for.
Very good.
That's going to be an interesting event. Now, the public August 17th, 18th, and 19th, is that something we have a duty to do, to be involved with in terms of, is something that has to be represented from this committee there?
Are you the sponsor of any of the articles?
I think that we're not. We were
No.
supporting the select committee in one of the ones they're sponsoring that's for Article 40, but we weren't actually sponsoring. Article 40.
Okay, then you don't have any particular duty. And actually, if I could ask a question on your agenda, you're talking about what announcements will be needed. I'm not sure what you meant in the agenda, but again, we're trying to really minimize. But however, the moderator will accept, if you have important announcements, I think she'll accept them in written form and they could be part of the handout.
Do we have any announcements?
Probably only if we wanted to have group support for any of the planning board articles. I think the planning board articles are going forward, but we haven't talked about them. I don't know. I don't think there's anything else that's going to be on the calendar that we would take a position on.
I'm not sure what planning board articles are relevant to our committee. I'm sure we all have interest in some of them, but I'm trying to remember.
Well,
I don't
as
have,
well, there will be in the packet that gets mailed out a brief about Article 40, right? If there probably already was in the town warrant or in the catalog for the the original town meeting. And it'll probably be very similar to that, right?
except that Article 40 is going to be postponed.
I mean, we could say, you know, if Article 40 does come up on the agenda, because 10 citizens can put it up, we support it. I mean, was qualified that way.
Does that mean,
If you're planning to do something like that, if you're really upset that Article 40 is going to be done, you know, 3 or 6 months later, you know, as soon as we have the next town meeting and it's safe to have the town meeting again, we're going to take up Article 40. But if you feel that it's absolutely, they're using the word essential, that we do it now, then I suggest you contact the moderator as soon as possible.
Does anybody think it's essential?
I think it's important, but it's not essential, and it's not a good article to have in a case where there isn't sufficient debate. I don't think it's fair to ram this through.
Right, I agree with you, Brad.
To be honest with you.
But I just thought, I mean, it's possible other people from Mothers Out Front may want to ram it through, for example. I mean, the non-CSEC people could. And if they do, we would want to, you know, if it's on the agenda, we'd want to support it. That's all. That's what I was thinking.
Good question. Don't have any information on that.
And the only things that will be taken up in town meeting, I mean, in the public hearings on the 17th, 18th, and 19th of August, I assume articles that are going to be voted on. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And at
Doug?
the hearing, we will learn whether Brothers Out Front wants to do something. By the next meeting, we may know more about whether it's going to be Article 40 is going to appear, even if CSAC does not promote it. We'll know more next month.
Yeah. Hey, Doug,
Yeah.
occasionally your sound goes out for a little bit. So if there's anybody upstairs streaming videos or something, you might want to.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go off. I'm going to turn my video off so that you can't see me, but you can hear me, and that might improve it. Let me try that.
It hasn't. It only a couple times.
How's that?
Well, we'll find out. We've had this problem on other occasions, and what we've done as a workaround is dial in using a phone, and we have good audio quality.
I can do that if we need
This
it.
doesn't solve it.
Well, let's try it as it is. Let's see if
Yeah, it hasn't been bad. Just
Okay. I think that concludes our requirements for step 4 or item 4. Brad, you want to give us a short update on the Heat Smart Alliance work?
yeah, it'll be short. So we're continuing to work pretty busily. We have had our monthly meeting last Friday, the 10th, and so the Heat Smart Alliance is still. I think there were 17 towns involved. From Concord, it's me and Kim Slack and Jan Assetti, who works at the light plant, and Susan Melota-Zenik, try to spell that, who works for Mass CEC, and but she's a Concord resident as well. We had a vote for officers because we're kind of a new group, and Bob Zog from Carlisle is going to be the facilitator for a year. I'm going to be the treasurer. I presented a draft budget to talk about. It really doesn't involve much in terms of income and expenses, but we're going to be developing a new website on the cheap. That's one of our next things to do. I wanted to mention that the group is, besides updating the website, we've been talking about coaching issues. Within Concord, Kim Slack and I have been doing coaching, and we're coordinating. That is, when people want to find out about heat pumps, they get in touch with one of us, and we talk about options and help however we can. And then we also have work ongoing discussing performance issues of heat pump systems, because there have been interesting study recently about, so heat pumps have a certain performance that the manufacturer evaluates, but it's related to how well the system is sized for the home. So if you grossly oversize the system, let's say you put in a system that's twice as large as it needs to be, then it doesn't operate well. It turns out it comes on for a while and again goes off, and that ends up being worse performance than usual, than one would expect. So we're trying to understand that research and how the kind of guidance we can give to people. The other thing I wanted to just mention, which is tangentially related, is that Jan Assetti well, she has gotten a group called Abode Energy, which is a company that's based in Concord, down by Hanscom, who will be acting as the heat pump expert. Sort of like we have through Energy New England, there's an EV expert. There's going to be a heat pump expert who will actually be looking at the design of systems before installation that are going to be rebated systems, and just giving it their look over to make sure what people are installing is the right thing, as far as they can tell. So that's going to be starting soon. I think they're just setting up the contractual details. So that's my report on Heat Smart Alliance and heat pump related stuff. Any questions? Okay.
Does that cover the Mass Energize, what they're doing too?
No, that's a separate thing, and I have a little update for that. So Mass Energize is the nonprofit that I've been spending most of my time working for. We have we've had 3 summer interns paid for by the Mass EC. Actually, 2 were paid for, and 1 we're paying the whole bill. And they're doing great work updating some of our web platform software. We have a really great guy doing software engineering, and 2 of them have been doing playbooks. Playbooks meaning material resources for communities. How do you set up a contact list that you can use for running events? How do you there's a few different playbooks that they're working on. Another thing is that Mass Energize has been working pretty closely with a related group called Cooler Communities, which grew out of the Cooler Concord Fair, but it was picked up by, Gilda Gusson, who most of you know, who was on the committee. She and a woman named Uli Nagel have been promoting fairs in different towns, mostly in Western Massachusetts, and they have a group that a foundation that's been funding those. And what we've designed a web tool called the Carbon Saver, which is meant to run on mobile phones, that replaces the spreadsheet calculator that we developed for that Cooler Concord Fair. And it's not worth giving a demo of yet, but it uses this carbon calculator that I developed that we took out of the spreadsheet and turned it into a Python code, and it's hosted on a website. And if you go to such a fair, and you say, I'm interested in heat pumps, it'll ask you questions like, how do you heat your home now? Do you use oil or gas? And what was your bill over the last year? And things like that. And that's a way for it to evaluate what is the carbon impact for doing a heat pump, or for doing a variety of different actions, 30 or 40 different actions that you could have at one of these fairs. So that's kept us busy. I have a summer intern, a high school kid from CCHS working on the code for that tool, finishing a couple pages off. And then we have a community forum that meets once a month. That's for the communities that have gotten started with Mass Energize. That includes Wayland and Newton, Concord, Lexington, Framingham, and JCAN, with the Jewish Climate Action Network, and a couple of communities that are thinking of working with us. But this has turned into something kind of what people refer to as a community of practice. These are experts that have worked with their energy committee, and they have ideas on how do you promote things, what sort of they've all set up the platform. So we've been talking a lot about when people come to the platform, well, a lot of them just visit and then they go away. Well, what's the deal? How do we make them feel like setting up a profile? And a lot of this has to do with the missing features. We don't have enough good social media sharing on the site, things like that. So we're learning about how to improve the platform to make it make people think there's value there. I want to use that. Now, separately, the Cooler Concord group is a few of us. We haven't been working intensively yet, but it includes myself, Janet, and Karen, and Gilda Gusson and Susan Fry, who some of you may know, and we have 4 high school interns. There's a teacher at the high school named Jennifer Benson who lives down in Framingham, and she recruited these 4 interns for us and said, "Here are your interns," and they're getting started working on a bit of content, and also setting up. We had a Facebook page, but they're going to be improving that and posting to it, and they're setting up an Instagram site as well. So our group, which we can't sit down and work together, unfortunately, but we have a lot of work to do in the next month to improve content on the platform before we start to promote it in town, besides just to people we know. So we're hoping that in September we'll be able to really announce it, have some posters, have some outreach to the school, through the schools or through different organizations. And then that, our plan is that that's when it will really be up and running. I don't know, has anybody taken a look at that site? Okay, well, I know Janet has. Janet is working on content as well. And
where's the URL to get to that platform?
you should be able to reach it through coolerconcord.org.
Okay.
Now, sometimes that is, I'm having a little problem that every now and then that the domain name server makes that not work. So the other URL you can reach it from is community.massenergize.org/ConcordMA, where Concord and MA are capitalized. I can send that in my notes. Anyway, that was the update the only update I have. Hi, Terry.
Thank you very much, Brad.
I just want to take a very quick moment to thank Brad for your service on Heat Smart Alliance. And I can attest firsthand how Brad came out and helped us at our house. And we are really fortunate to have him. Thank you, Brad.
And I need to follow up with you to see how things are going, but we can do that.
Going
offline.
great.
Good.
Okay, going on to the next item. Do you have anything for an update on the EV programs, Janet?
Not a lot. It's still possible that there will be a ride and drive event in the fall, but it's doubtful. As far as the EV pilot program for multi-unit dwellings, there were three multi-unit dwellings that were selected. One was Riverwalk, one was Center Village, the third one was Millbrook Condominiums. Riverwalk and Center Village now have the engineer's report and an engineer's estimate of how much it will cost.
Riverwalk and what else?
Center Village, which is also in West Concord. The third one, the Millbrook Condominiums, that's on Kais Road. They have started work. I think the engineer's been there, but things were held up a lot because of COVID-19. So I'm not quite sure when they're going to be done. Once that is completed, CMLP will decide how they're going to subsidize these installations. CMLP set aside $75,000 to help get the installations in, and I doubt that it's going to be divided equally in thirds, but I don't know. We're waiting on that before anybody can move forward. So I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions, I'll try and answer them.
When do you think they'll make a decision about whether there will be a ride and drive?
I don't know. I guess they would. I mean, last year it was held first weekend in November, so I guess would have to have the decision by early September. But I don't know. I haven't actually discussed that, and we haven't discussed that at an EV working group meeting recently.
Okay. Thank you, Janet.
You're welcome.
So the next thing that we have on the agenda is the CSEC role in the town climate action and resiliency plan, along with its 5-year priorities. And I wanted to use as a starting point, a reference point, the spreadsheet that I made was an action spreadsheet. Now, I assume that not everybody has read this, but if they have, we could have a deeper discussion. But what I tried to do is I went into the plan that, if you remember back in our June meeting, I made a spreadsheet that listed out all of the CSEC priorities from that version of the plan. And what the latest spreadsheet is a spreadsheet that pulls out all of the new plan that was the final draft plan that was released in early July, around July 4th. And I put it into a spreadsheet wherever it had CSEC as a key partner. And there
I was unable to open that. I don't know whether anybody else had problems, but
I couldn't open it either.
okay, so let me just
I
wait.
saw it. I saw it. Okay.
Yeah, it is a Google spreadsheet, so it opens in your browser.
But it was saved as a Word. It was saved as a Word document, though. It's in a Google site, but it's in a Word document format.
Your spreadsheet?
Yeah.
so it
Not
should
what-
it should
not what you
appear
sent
in
me.
Google Docs. I mean, it should.
Mine opened as a
You
spreadsheet.
can open it. You can open it with Google Docs. I mean, with Google Spreadsheet, but
I-
it's saved
I
in a
tried.
Dropbox.
I tried and failed. So I
Right.
don't know whether
Janet, you
I'm
couldn't.
locked out for some reason or what.
And Karen,
I don't have a Gmail address, which sometimes complicates things.
Is this the thing that's called V2 CSEC actions from the Concord Climate Action Plan?
yes.
And the extension is G Sheet. Yeah, my
Yeah.
computer didn't know what to do with it, even though I'm using Google Chrome when I click on the link.
So
Hey,
Hey,
Doug,
Doug, you sent that to me a second time and I was able to open it, however you sent it to me.
What happened, what I did was, some of you didn't have permissions to view it. And in Bob's case, I added it, and in Kate's case, I added you to have viewer access. I suspect that the problem is that some of you don't aren't in the permissions list. So if you can give me a second, I can just double check that.
I think the right thing to do, Doug, is for you to download it as an Excel and send it as a file. Unfortunately, that makes it a little less collaborative. But in fact, with open meeting law, it's better for you to send an individual file to people. I don't know if other people may
I thought
disagree.
actually that that's what I was doing when I sent it out. I thought that because it saved it in a doc format that I was doing that, but apparently I wasn't. But I can make further effort to try and do that. And usually what happens is if I try to send it from the Google site, it attaches it as a Google Doc. But if I send it from my own downloaded local workspace, then it goes out as a file. Anyway,
Okay.
Can I just jump in and give a little context for the plan? So it was completed, as Doug said, the final draft is now on the website. Doug noted to me earlier that there have been significant changes since the last draft, so I would encourage you all to take a look. And so Doug pulled out all the priority actions where CSEC is flagged as a key partner. So, you know, my recommendation would be to, you know, take a look at the plan again, look at the key actions, the priority actions, look where CSEC is a partner. And I think, you know, how that could play out could be a number of different ways. If there are particular actions where you all as a committee are really excited about jumping in and supporting the champion who's responsible for leading that action, then, you know, that could, there's a role where you could, you know, take more of an active, be more of an active participant. There may be some actions in there. You know, one example is around electrification and heat pump coaches, where, you know, CSEC may be flagged as, you know, obviously you all are really great about getting the word out and engaging the community. So that could be one where it doesn't necessarily mean that CSEC would be a heat, you know, all of you would be a heat pump coach, but it may be, you know, a good opportunity for CSEC to participate in spreading the word about certain programs. So
Right.
it's a pretty long list that Doug's put together because CSEC is,
there are 14 items,
yeah.
14 categories.
So, you know, just to say, don't be overwhelmed. You don't have to do all of them right now.
Right.
So, you know, would definitely look to you all to kind of take a look and digest it and see what you're interested in jumping in on.
If people wanted to, I can share my screen and just walk through it quickly and just show it to people that don't have access to it.
Sure.
Let me do that. And we can just talk to the different points without getting into a level of detail.
Mhm.
Okay, now let me find it.
Of course, these are several year steps. So we have, as a group, I think the best thing would be if there's something that we want to do and we're not doing, that a member of CSEC can sort of say, I want to, like there's something about commercial buildings which we're not doing, but if we want to, if there's somebody who says, you know, I have expertise, I want to do this, think about jumping forward and saying, let me put a plan together, stuff like that.
The way this is broken out is that there's an action name, there's an action, and can you guys see my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's an set of implementation steps that are suggested, and there's a time frame, and then there's a list of the key partners that are going to be working on this activity, and then there's a champion who is the primary key partner. This is all actually in the main plan, but it's broken out here so that only the items that related to CSEC are showing. Now, in this first case, the action is to increase electrification and improve energy efficiency with residential buildings. And the CSEC committee is charged as one of the key partners, and it's supposed to be a process that is worked on between 2021 and 2025. And some of the action implementation steps are to explore and provide streamlined pathways for residents to go from it to an action, such as providing and following up on home energy assessments, heating and cooling coaching services, energy advisor services to assist in residents in following through with some of their energy assessments, and so on. Lists of participating contractors. A lot of these things are similar to what we have been working on, at least in some fashion, for the last 2 years that I've been involved. But how we actually engage the public on these matters, I guess, remains to be developed and seen. And I think, so that's the first one.
A question for Kate. Is this action purely for existing homes, or is this encompassing existing homes plus new homes, new developments, etc.?
There's another separate action on new development that's more specific to new development, but I don't think this one would necessarily be exclusive of new development, but the focus is really on existing homes.
I guess so, because it's dealing with residents, and there are no residents
Right.
in
Yes,
the new
but
one.
this particular one is about existing homes, but there is another one that's coming up that has to do with new construction.
Yeah.
I have a question on this as well. Is there any prioritization that's going on in the our approach to these?
So
We have to do that. We have to do.
So Climate Action Advisory Board talked about prioritization many times. There's no prioritization within the actions in the plan. These 22 actions are the priorities for the next 5 years. So each action has a blueprint, and that's where Doug pulled these details from that specify a time frame for the steps. So, some of the steps are 2020 to 2021. So that gives you some sense of like the sequence of events. So Doug, I don't know if you want to read through all of these. I think
I just want to,
folks
I want to page through, I want to just, maybe I'll touch base on the action name without going into the specifics, if that's okay. Do people want to even do that much? Otherwise, what I would encourage to happen is that you take this list and reflect on it as much as you can in the next month, and be in a position where we could have a deeper conversation about the things that we want to bring to the table in the next year that are components of this. Is that a
Can I just
reasonable?
ask a question?
Sure.
The implementation steps, are those directly from the report, or are these things that you have identified that are specifically for CSEC to consider?
No, they're directly from the report. And I think what is interesting to me is, at least in terms of how I've kind of been stomaching them, is they're a set of ideal, it's kind of like a shopping list of the things that people that put this together thought were the most important things that could or should happen. And the interpretation of how they're going to be done is very much open to interpretation. Is that a fair statement?
So all the things in the plan have been identified as priorities for things we should and will do in the next 5 years. Yeah. Obviously, we're not going to, solve all of our problems in the next 5 years, but these are the priorities and the steps that are going to start moving us in the right direction. Of course, there could be other steps that are not included here. This is not the end all be all of everything we're going to do in the next 5 years, but this is intended to be, these are the priority actions. These are the steps to get us going, and the partners that should be involved to varying extents. So I would say, first, Doug's list is great because it calls out the CSEC ones. I would encourage you to take a look at the full plan first to get the context for all of the actions and how they're kind of framed all together, and then dig into the ones where CSEC
Right.
is flagged as a partner.
And my sense of it was like, my first pass at trying to read the entire plan is like drinking from a fire hose. And by breaking them out this way, at least it narrowed focus down to what we had to be at least thinking about.
Right.
You know, a question that remains to be seen that I wonder about a lot is where you have multiple key partners that are all supposed to be contributing to this initiative. How are those groups supposed to coordinate with each other about what's being done about that particular action? Because it's not like that they can crosstalk and have meetings together. And I don't know how that's going to flow into each other.
So Doug, all of the actions are being led by the champions. So the champions would be the group that would be coordinating that effort. The key partners are not necessarily intended to be all of these people need to get in a room together. It's just that all of these groups are groups that should potentially be consulted or informed or involved in the process at some point.
Yeah.
Is the champion the first group listed in each of Doug's columns of partners?
No, it's the champion column.
Champion. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, I would say take a look, at least, flip through the plan. The beginning section, there's a plan at a glance. It's a one-page spread, and it lists all of the plan elements with their goal and all the actions. That gives you a sense of like, here are all the things that we are going to do. And then when you look at, just pick one of the blueprints at the end to get a sense of kind of the structure and where this information comes from. You don't have to read every single blueprint. Obviously, it is a lot of text. Just give you a sense of kind of what does champion mean? What does key partner mean?
Do people have any broad stroke questions about this at this point? How many of you have actually had a chance to think about the 14 items that were on the spreadsheet?
I'm thinking a lot about the second one, which is what we want to talk about as the next agenda item, getting started with just residential awareness through that sustainable home work. I haven't gotten.
No, I tend to agree. I think that some of the other ones, looking at two just for a second, let's just take a look at that, because that is a pretty high priority one, and it'll be a lead into the next item in the agenda. But it says to promote and provide education on home energy assessments, home energy efficiency improvements, and electrification through There's 1 through G items here. These are all things that were basically ideas that we had planned to be doing with the new sustainable home brochure last spring before the COVID thing kicked in. And I think a lot of these areas that have to do this is a continuance of trying to promote the sustainable home pamphlet that we created last winter. And I think there's a lot of value and future in keeping that moving forward. How we do that, I think that's what we have to come up with.
Next agenda item.
Is the idea that we as a group choose one of these areas to focus on first and kind of work through that and do something, do some action for that and some promotion and some, some of the things that we've been talking about, webinars and that, and then maybe move on to another item? I mean, is that the idea of this sort of subgroup?
I think that's one of the things that we're here to talk about and have a discussion about. One thought that I have, I think that your conceptualization of it that way, Julie, makes a lot of sense on one level. It certainly keeps our group congealed together in terms of what our action is. Another way of looking at this that had occurred to me, whether we're going to do it or not, is totally undecided, is to form subgroups within this committee that have a commitment to working on some of the items more, so that you'd have some people working on some of the items and others working on other of the items. But I don't think that's a great way to keep our group congealed a lot, as well as we were doing last year. On another level, we do have these representatives that are connected to the other committees that are the other key partners. Like we have a CMLP partner person liaison, we have a CAAB liaison. Maybe what we want to do is to think about having some sort of liaison to these other key partner groups that are listed. I don't know.
I like your second idea too, Doug, because I just think while we're working like this, I think it's very hard for 9 people to kind of keep finding a time to all come together to work on, one big project together. And I think it's actually easier to break into small groups and have 3 of you pick a time and just like work on, some smaller section of it. We break it into pieces like you suggested as an alternative to what I had said. So I think that's an easier way to work possibly in this kind of strange Zoom time we're in.
I just don't want people to get lost in a vacuum of like where there's only 1 or 2 other people working on it and they lose perspective as to what they can do to make a difference.
You should just be wary that, small groups are considered subcommittees, which means you would have to follow open meeting law as well.
Right.
Okay.
But one of the, significant things to getting started on this is we would need to coordinate with the champion. So I think to sort of prioritize, our first step might be to contact the champion for each of the items that we're contemplating getting involved with, to find out what their schedule is. When do they thinking of starting? How would they like us to work with them? Because ultimately, I think the champion is the one who's going to drive that particular item. The other thing I would say is there's so much here. Doug, what did you say? 14 of them?
Yeah, 14 of them. But about 2 or 3 of them are the same. They're related to the same action, and in certain cases, there's very little. I mean, I have not yet interpreted how we could work with that.
Yeah. Well, I guess my comment was simply going to be, I think we need to be wary of spreading ourselves too thin.
I agree 100%.
So the combination of looking for guidance from the champion and not putting too many irons in the fire, kind of limiting that, I think those will be a couple keys to being effective.
Yeah, and Jerry, that's a really good point. And on Wednesday at the CAB meeting, we had a similar discussion where they were asking for a sense of, with all these actions, how do the champions feel about like, which are ones that they need support from CAB or other committees to move forward, which ones are, going to move forward on schedule without and don't necessarily need any support. Something that I'm going to be working on over the next month or so is kind of a status of like, where do we need support in moving these things forward, so I can share that with you all as well. And kind of, but I do think, Jerry, looking at like what are you all most interested in too, should be a factor as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Reflecting on your comments there, Kate, it occurs to me that probably the gating factor for almost all of these, just looking at who the champions are, is having CMLP identify who's going to lead the efforts. So, for example, let's see, just pick number 1 there in the build environment. Okay, CMLP is the champion. So if we wanted to get involved, or even if CMLP is going to do something, they have to identify who's going to lead that. So I would suggest that in your workings with CMLP to implement this plan, encourage them to, as soon as possible, identify who their leads are going to be. And that would provide us someone to talk to begin to figure out how do we approach implementation.
Well, example of this that was sort of comes to mind when I think about last winter when we were creating the brochure or the pamphlet. We were working very closely with CMLP and Janicetti, at least
Right.
Judy, not the whole not our whole group, but particularly Judy Klein,
Julie.
Julie
Yeah.
Klein, and myself, and Brad a little bit, where they created a brochure that was very close to what we created, but that was separate. The poster was similar, but their intentionality around the poster had been their audience was new customers, and our audience intentionality was a little different. And it would just be a matter of, it wasn't that what we were doing was that unrelated, but it was unrelated enough so that it could lead to sort of differences of approach to how we were going to implement what the educational components were or not going to be. And it's just a question of like, how do we work with CMLP and be really clear about what we're doing if we're on a different step than what they're in? That's why what Bob is saying about being talking to the champions first is important, but I fear that, you know, CMLP has a lot more things on their agenda than CSEC, and we might be waiting for 3 months before we really can get direction from CSEC, from CMLP as to what they really want to do.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Brad, that's why I'm here. I'm staff liaison to help make those connections. Yeah. And, I love the enthusiasm to jump right in, and we definitely have to hit the ground running. But, we just finished this a couple weeks ago. So moving into the implementation is now my top priority, and figuring out how do we get going? What do the champions need in terms of support to move things going? What's their timeline? Is it, can we stick to the timeline in the plan? So, that's definitely on the radar. So I think at this point, identifying where you guys are most interested in getting involved will be really helpful. And I think, especially with, picking up with the work that you've already done, ties right into the plan. So the brochure, moving on with the next steps of that, I think seems like a really good focus area for now.
Right. Just to add on, I think we should look at this, with an assignment for next month, a few of these, and have people come up with the ideas of what we're good at, what we can do that's impactful, and before going and talking to the champion necessarily, saying, CSEC has, because if we wait around for people to say, oh yeah, we'll need CSEC for that, it'll be years, it won't be months, but if we say, okay, we want to run this video series this fall, we want to, make sure that you guys know what we're doing and give us feedback, and if we come forward with concrete stuff of what we think, what value we think we add, it will add the value.
Because we know better than anybody else what value we can add. They're not going to have a clue what kind of value we can add.
Yeah, but as Kate said, she is in the room.
Yeah.
I think that's a good approach, Brad. What are you interested in? What are you good at? Where do you want to add value? And bring that to, I can work with you to bring that to the champion. In many cases, the champion is me, so that's pretty easy.
Is there another section? Because I keep trying to move up and down Doug's screen. Of course, I can't because I keep thinking it's my screen. But you know, so I think we've talked about section 2 a little bit, and that's very relevant. Is there another section that's more relevant than that? I mean, why don't we just decide to go for that? I'm for like now. Otherwise, it's like another month and another month, and then you know, I'm hearing you
What do you mean by
like to
section
make
2?
this move now, Kate.
I mean,
Is the item where CSEC is changing?
Maybe I should
I think the next item on the agenda, talking about what's next for your sustainable home pamphlet, that ties right into the climate action plan. So it seems like that would be a good next step because you guys are already going on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to page through this document one time, just to, so you can kind of get a glimpse. And the beginning, the way that the big plan is set up, there are these master sections. This is called the built environment. And so this numbering column in my spreadsheet is just a list of a numbering for all of them across all of the sections. This one is a number within the section, and this number that's over here is the number that's in the plan itself. So that could be a little confusing, but it makes sense. Okay, so here, it jumped. I guess it's gonna jump.
Yeah.
So improve, the next part is, so we're in the built environment right now. Set progressive sustainability standards.
Wait a second, you skipped one. There you
Improve
go.
energy performance of commercial buildings.
Okay. So this is something we're not ready to do yet.
Well,
But I
notice
think it would be
it
quite
starts
interesting.
21 and goes to 23. So
Now we're in 21. I assume this is fiscal year, so we're
oh, okay.
No, it's calendar year.
it's calendar year, but it doesn't mean people can't start getting their ideas together.
Yep. Yeah, and again, I think it would be really helpful if everyone could just, take a look on their own, and
Yeah.
a lot to digest.
There's a lot to get. Set progressive sustainability standards for municipal buildings, schools, develop a phased plan for deep retrofits to existing town buildings. The next one after that is to establish policies and incentives for the new development and to achieve high standards for sustainability and resilient design. Then we have a bunch of the same they all relate to that. There are smaller things. And I think some of these ones that I noticed aren't things that we have an immediate task that CSEC could really do.
Yeah.
I think it'll be an outcome of our whatever else we're doing anyway.
Right.
And then create opportunities for townwide to increase the waste diversion rate by 30%. Does this have to do with solid waste more?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Then we come down to the energy section, and we have a couple of things in that section. Redesign of electricity rates to support energy conservation, peak load management, electrification, and renewable energy generation. Like in this case, I didn't know how CSEC, I have not intuited how CSEC can help with that.
Doug, I think it's more clear when you look at the implementation step, where one of the steps is around marketing and awareness campaign, and that's where CSEC, has,
right.
and that's part of your charge.
Yep. And I found that to be the most helpful column to read, the implementation step. Provide incentives for businesses and homeowners to invest in renewable energy. Shift CMLP's electric supply to 100% carbon-free resources. I think this one is a very powerful one that I'd be very interested to be involved with too. I was wondering, for example, is there anybody that could create a paper or some kind of source of information that's public information about this topic? Maybe that's part of the plan, and maybe that's something CMLP has
Yeah.
already done. Okay.
Right, since this one starts soon, I would imagine maybe they get together a subgroup and we send a representative to it to see, you know, how to get going with it.
And then there's only two more. It would be nice to have a paper that was titled something like Concord's Progress Toward Providing Carbon-Free Electricity, that was written for the public, you know, that they could understand that better and not have it be fraught with all the politics of the town.
You could
Anyway.
write that.
Mhm.
And this
So,
has to do with.
Now, on the, is
ahead.
I don't have the plan in front of me. Is there, are there any actions in the energy under building out solar in town?
I think there is one, number 11.
Is it?
Businesses and homeowners invest in renewable energy, and here's maintain, promote, and enhance solar incentive programs for residential and commercial customers.
Right, but not, yeah, okay.
Some of these are they're general, they're very general.
Yeah, okay.
And I think there's a wide option to interpret them in different ways, so we have to be careful about that.
Right.
Then we're in the mobility section. This is more to do with electrification of automobiles and transportation around the town using more electric school buses and such.
Right.
And then the last one is accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles under mobility. There are other sections in the plan, but we don't have any tasks in those sections.
Well, there's one you had listed under the next one, natural resources. One more down.
Oh, okay, there's one
that were listed in, and that's
the last one.
So it seems to me on both natural resources and mobility that we could have a champion within CSEC, you know, trying to get our ideas together on where we fit in with that.
Like a liaison.
You can call it a liaison, but it should be someone who just doesn't attend meetings, but actually thinks about what we can do and you know, where we fit in. Yeah.
I think we need to revisit this in the meeting next month and having read the plan and thought about it more.
I also think that the landscaping and the mobility topics, I mean, they're both featured in our sustainable home. You know, they're both sort of subsections of our sustainable home has many topics that it covers, you know. Right. So my own feeling is that the number 2, you know, point here and implementation steps is the one that seems to me the most relevant, because it connects with our sustainable, with the work we've already done in the spring and the winter, and embraces some of these later topics.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it embraces them. I think it touches them.
Yeah.
And, you know, on
doesn't delve deep. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, thinking about mobility, how do you get people to carpool, or how do you get, you know, what can we do? I think there's room for more depth of materials that we could develop that, you know, things that are deeper. It touches them. It's a good thing, but it's not the whole story.
No.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, or is there a need to go into any more overview of the climate action resiliency plan and what CSAC is supposed to do with them.
I have one more comment, and that's, I think it's key, not only the champions are involved, but to have a clear understanding of incentives or planned incentives on each one of these actions. Because I think so many of them are going to need some type of incentive to go forward. Just my opinion.
So for this meeting, I think we should have homework for the next meeting that's a little more than read the plan and come back and have the same discussion. I'd like to, I would love it if we could say, okay, could each of you take a section and write your thoughts on where we fit in? Something like that.
And how are you assigning the sections? Or
Self-assign. That was just my thought.
Yeah, self-assignment, well, we'll take the same, some people will take the same one.
Well, we can self-assign here at the meeting.
Could do, yeah.
And several of us I would assign to work on number 2, like you say, on the sustainable home, because we have to.
Well, I think that the number 2 is almost like almost all of us. And especially as it relates to the pamphlet that we've already been working with. I don't know how to work together as a group on some of these things yet. The other thing is, I know that my summertime, like between now and the next meeting, I'm stretched.
Right. My point is we should take this as our marching orders and say, okay, what can we do? Start to think about what we can do. And we have a lot of previous experience to bring to bear. So if at the next meeting, someone was to say on natural resources, well, this is what we've done before, and this is where we could, this is kind of where we can contribute. If someone was to do that for each section, then we could sort of start making progress with it.
Well, here's an example of a thing that I had been thinking about, but which I don't feel like I have authority to know whether it would be possible to do it or not. If you go back to section 2, which is the hot popular one, let me just go there. One of the items there is to number C, up-to-date and interactive resources on the town website. And one of the questions that I had been, if I was going to write something about that, one of the things that had come to my mind was, is there any way we could have a question and answer forum for sustainability questions that will be related to, say, a webinar series that we would be working with. If we had a webinar series and we wanted people to be able to feed back into it or to make it more interactive, could that be put on the web? Could there be some kind of question and answer process built into the town website under the sustainability section? I don't know whether there actually already is something like that in the works, or whether it's impractical to do it on the town website, or whether it makes, like even in what you said, Brad, about what you're doing with the Heat Smart group, there's sort of an interactive piece in that too, but I don't know how it could be interrelated and connected to something that would be on the town website. And so a lot of questions, proposals could be made, but they could be easily thrown away.
Right. So maybe we should switch to thinking about, well, I do want to get to talking about what item 9 is.
Why don't we just go on, let's go on to item 9, and if we need to come back to it, I don't want to put people in a crimped position between now and the next meeting. I mean, this is a lot of information here.
Right. So on item 9, I wanted to make a proposal that we don't think in terms of webinars, because if we want to, let's say we have an hour of material and we put it together into an hour webinar, I think we'd get 0 signups. I think that nobody would have the patience for that. But if it's much more like what you say, so I'm thinking in terms of a monthly or even bi-weekly if there was interest, but a monthly meet up to talk sustainability. And we do a 10-minute overview webinar, 10 minutes maximum, to talk about all the things that are involved. But we get people to sign up and to tell us what they're interested in. I'm coming to your webinar, I'm coming to your meetup because I want to know about solar. Then we know exactly who should be on the other end, and we could have some really good focused discussions. Kind of what you're suggesting, Doug, what you suggested.
If I was connected to an interactive dialogue place where people could converse about it, like a Facebook page, maybe that would make some sense.
Doug, can you stop sharing your screen so we can see everybody's faces? I think it would be helpful.
One thing I was thinking of, I think the idea, Brad, of a short video is really good because people like 7 to 10 minutes, something you can watch really quickly. But you could think about, if this is focused on your sustainable home, maybe picking out those topics and doing a 7-10 minute video on each of those topics, and then having, okay, here's a 7-minute video on solar, log on to this event, like Q&A event afterwards to ask your questions about solar. So it's kind of focused by topic. So people who are really interested in that topic would come to the webinar or maybe watch the video and pique their interest, and then they'd show up to your kind of Q&A session.
Okay.
I think that's
Could the Q&A sessions be recorded and then put online so that they could be used again?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Create like a facts document, FAQ.
Or
I like that idea, Kate.
like if you had
If you had it as a Facebook event, people could put their questions like into the event, the Facebook event in advance too. And then everyone could see them. We could give that a try. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, like, I don't know if Facebook is the best venue, but you could try. See.
I think Minuteman Media is looking for content, and they'd be thrilled to have your videos.
Yeah, they always are, Terry, and they're so easy to work with to get videos up on YouTube. Everything I do, they put up right away. They've a sustainability playlist that is basically like a bunch of the sustainability videos all in one playlist, so it kind of keeps going. So I'm sure they could make a similar playlist for the Your Sustainable Home videos. That could be the kind of recorded short videos and the recordings of Q&A sessions or whatever we want to do there.
I think it would be a way that maybe that we could keep the group focused and together is to have breakout, let's say I can't remember how many sections there are in sustainable homes, but if there's about 8 to 10 sections in there. If we made a video, like you said, Kate, about each one, and that maybe different people from our group worked on each particular one, or maybe there's some economy in the people that know how to create the videos, to work with other people that are creating the content for that video.
Mm-hmm. So who has expertise in making videos?
I did one about the climate action plan, and I just did a Zoom meeting with myself and recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
It was really easy.
That could work, but if you wanted to show stuff, you have to walk around and say, here's my heat pump. This is what it looked like. Can you hear it? It's running.
over PowerPoint. So
Well, I think, to make it fun too, instead of terribly serious, would be actually a way to reduce the tension of it.
yeah, for sure.
I think probably you should work with Aaron Stevens in the town and work with Minuteman Media. They both have a lot of expertise in this area, and they'd be really happy to work with you on this item and the previous item, the whole implementation. And all these brainstorming ideas are perfect for what CSEC is supposed to be doing. So great. I think definitely we can. Somebody asked, can we do it? Yes, we can do it. Definitely.
It seems to me like two things have been proposed. One is just to do these little kind of webinars or videos with Q&A sessions on all 8 topics that are covered in the Sustainable Home pamphlet. And the other one was someone mentioned, I think Brad or Kate said, we could find out from residents what they're most interested in, and then, of those topics that we have, and then focus on those. I don't know how we would find that out. Would that be through Facebook somehow? Or, how do you kind of reach out to the public and say, what do you want to know about? What topics are you most interested in, whether it's solar or sustainable landscaping or whatever? I don't know how we would find out.
If you do one video Q&A sessions, you could solicit questions about, well, what topic would you like to know more about?
That's true.
We'll see if we can address that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it could become, I don't know, this is ambitious, but a rolling dialogue so that there's energy that keeps perpetuating what is happening based on a community of people that are talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I think, once you have the video, you can maybe have separate sessions showing I don't know whether this works or not, but showing the video and then having a, Q&A session that's different at different days.
Yeah.
Could we do something like if we did one of our newsletters that to kind of like just sort of announce that there's going to be this series of webinars, and could there be some response piece in that to say, tell us what you want to know about, and somehow we find out what those responses are.
Right.
They respond to an email or something, and then we can kind of like, frame our work around the responses.
Right. I think we could do that through a Google form and say,
Okay.
yeah. And there's, we could get that word out through a bunch of different channels.
Yeah, I think you would want to make it like a multiple choice, give people some options.
Right.
Other.
Yeah.
Okay. This is sounding like fun, actually. But
Well, one of the things that I'm imagining, just to put it out there, I feel kind of nervous about trying to project myself as an expert on certain kinds of future sustainability systems. But I certainly can have a conversation with people about it, and I'm more than willing to put myself out and try to, if we develop a script, that's around each one of those topics, we can loosely try to put it on. And then, if you've even done it once, you'll learn by the kind of feedback that you get from the people that are involved that come to the session, like, is this working or not working, or is it a waste of time, or is it actually something that's productive?
yeah. I'm looking for something. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got 8 different areas in your sustainable home. I just brought up the brochure. And
You signed them last time. Remember I signed them? I had my bossy moment.
yeah, why don't we use that bossy movement over again and come out with the script at least. If you're not comfortable recording a video yet, script script 2 things. One, a 1-minute overview that can go in a in a kind of an overview of, the 8 topics, and a 7-minute video where you talk about what's something in, show a picture, figure, get people interested in it. Something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this kind of separate to the previous conversation we had with all the topics that Doug was running through? It seems like there's so much overlap. I'm kind of a bit puzzled.
Kind of related to if you take number 2, I think it's kind of an extension of number 2, where
Yeah.
it's like the implementation steps were promote and provide education on home energy assessments and home energy efficiency improvements and electrification through activities as your sustainable home now materials designed by CSEC for residents. B, materials designed for new residents. That's what CMLP did. C, open up-to-date and interactive resources on the town website. D, mailed materials. We didn't have a budget for that. E, video testimonials, interviews, and presentations. F, tabling of local events. G, hosting events designed for homeowners, multifamily property residents. That might be what we call webinars, but Brad didn't want to call them webinars. And H, partnering with schools. Again, this goes back to the adult education piece that we were talking about doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
some of those are going to happen
I
in future
think
years.
we can pick out our particular interests. I mean, Brad, I know, has enormous knowledge of heat pumps. I've been working on the EV working group. I could do something with EVs, maybe.
It's been done before.
And the other.
You want to read those out to us?
Of the, I was, having been involved in the Sustainable Landscaping Fair, I could help out on that. Julie and Karen. I mean, there were lots of us involved in that. So I think we can pull out things that we're really good at.
Read out the 8 sections
Kevin,
again.
we've kind of done this. Exactly. I said exactly what you're saying, Janet. So I had, Janet, I have you on EVs, and Brad, these are the easy ones on, heat pumps. Karen had, beyond working on the landscaping fair, you were with New England native plants. And so that's landscaping seems like a good choice for you, because I think you'd enjoy it, and you've got that expertise. And then I think, and then the rest I'm not so clear on. I had assigned Jerry to solar, because I think you is that your kind of domain of interest and expertise, or? Yeah, are you on mute?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yes, I was. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And then Bob, HRVs and weatherization, would that be correct? That's something that you, yeah, okay, or you're on mute as well, okay. And then Sharon, I had you on recycling, reduce, and reuse.
Yep, fine.
And I put myself on and Doug, I've got efficient appliances, plumbing, and lighting. I mean, these are a bit random now, so kind of like you can pick anything. And I have myself on water waste.
Yeah.
Oh, Brad. Oh, no, Brad's on the heat pump. So there it is. I mean, and this.
What did you have yourself on?
Water waste, which was one of our topics.
Okay.
I mean, the last few were, a little bit more, could just take whatever you're interested in, and we can move it around. But obviously the first few were just very much, that was those members' expertise anyway. Just in the interest of moving it forward.
Right. I think we can begin to think about how this can be done, talking to other people, talking with Kate.
Yeah.
I like Kate's idea of using.
I mean, Brian, I'm sure will be very helpful with electric vehicles. He's certainly much more knowledgeable than I am. Maybe persuade him to be involved. There's also, I don't know whether Mark, I'm forgetting his second name,
Scribner.
from Energy New England, who would, Scribner, exactly, would like to be involved. I mean, he's very enthusiastic, but I imagine he wants to be paid. So,
Yeah.
What do people think of, if we had a bank of these 8 videos that are short videos to start with, and they could be used in a Zoom meeting conference as something that is presented in the conference with a following question and answer part to it that was just focused on that particular topic that evening. And it was not more than a half an hour, really. It was a short thing. You could have 8 sessions that were even repeated. Maybe you have 2 sessions for each session at different times over the period of the fall or a couple of months, where each one of us hosts one of those question and answer sessions, or maybe you have a team of two of us or that host the question and answer session, but it's backed up by a pre-made video that has already been vetted as being reasonably accurate and good.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I like the idea of the team.
Me too. Yeah.
You don't want to be out there by yourself.
No.
But yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's
In fact, I mean, the more it could be open so that in the sense that any one of the CSEC people could join the Zoom meeting that want to, and they could contribute to the conversation. It wouldn't have to be just 2 people. It could be as many as can go on that particular evening.
yeah, the right number.
Right.
9 CSEC people plus 1 person listening.
Yeah, right.
Well, the very first time out of the drawer, maybe that's what's needed, because we need to practice delivering the process. And the first time we do it, it's going to be awkward. And maybe we do it with each other one time, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Brad, do you want us all to do this kind of 1-minute overview and 7-minute sort of video script of each of our topics for next meeting? Is that kind of like what you know, because I can resend this list, and is that what you'd like to, how you'd like to
I
move
think
it
that's a
forward?
good, I think that would be, you know, during the summer, it's hard to get a lot done sometimes, but I think it would be fun to sit down and say, okay, what's a good video?
Mm-hmm.
And not just yourself, you know, if you talk to some, you know, if we can make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Show a couple examples of what we're talking about, because pictures are worth more than words. The Zoom video idea is great, except it does look like a lot of Zoom videos, so you have to spice it up, I think. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
We'll learn by
You
doing it.
have to have online questions. And
Well, having a live set,
answers.
have a live set of questions answered, somebody answering the question in the moment.
absolutely, yes,
Very
yes.
good.
Maybe should we start with a template?
Good
You
idea.
know, for the Cool Concord Fair, Jill said, you know, she came up with this template, and it was like, you're going to talk first about this, answer all these things, and it was a pain in the neck, but in actual fact, it was much easier to do homework exercise.
That's a very good idea.
You came right down to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you offering, Brad?
What?
Are you offering to make us a template?
Am I offering to make a template? I could try to whip up a template over the weekend, but you might be really good at that.
Okay. You and me together. We'll put our heads together. How about?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Brad and Julie will work on that. There we go.
Good.
So are we gonna be in a position to show at least one test video of one of these 8?
Doubt it.
Where somebody's given it a shot, to try and record something?
Well,
I'd be willing to try, but I don't, it'll probably be a complete disaster, but I don't care because we can recreate it.
Yeah, I have zero videography skills. so-
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to make the actual video. Well,
No, you sit in front of the camera and you just speak to, maybe you'll have some signs that you can hold up. And
Well, I
show
that's so
people.
boring.
It would be,
So boring.
I mean,
Okay.
Well, I don't know if it's boring. If it's boring, then we don't use it.
want to, show them how you plug it in, show them
Hmm.
what the dashboard looks like. Give some real life
I
examples
think
of what a VV looks like, and I don't know, you can do anything driving down the road and saying, oh, this is so smooth, it's so fast. I don't think that's going to work very well. But something
You've only got a few minutes.
shows the vehicle and what's similar, what's different, and
yeah.
rather than just sitting there looking at us,
Mm.
looking at a face who spurting.
What we need to do is we need to get a couple of interns of the kids that make these YouTube videos all the
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
They will help just do it it's like they do it like that.
Right.
Yeah. Good point.
I think at the very least, if we can come up with a template that we can share with everybody, and then do this kind of 1-minute overview and 7-minute script of a video. I think actually having a video ready by next meeting is a bit of an ask, but if we can have it scripted, templated, then that's something to work off, and we can kind of figure out how to make that actually real in a video by the next. And then we're in September, and we want this to be a fall plan, so we got to keep moving it along.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to take a shot at recording something from
Okay.
from I have the ability to create a Zoom meeting, and I can create a recording on ISO.
Not just you
I'll
at your
just play with
desk,
it.
Doug.
What?
Not just you at your desk.
It's 7. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to do it either. All I can do is try.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it could be a complete meltdown.
So
right.
Julie, what do you envisage for your water waste?
Oh, I would go and talk to Melissa. I would film some water pouring out. I'd probably have Niagara Falls. There's lots of things you can do. Every one of these topics could be really exciting. That
Right.
you're on video. Like the world's your oyster. You're just going to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could show examples of what people do on their lawns that they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a picture of my neighbor watering in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You know why that's bad?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Be sure to get the street sign and house number in that video.
Yeah.
Maybe something, that there is one aquifer under Concord, and if you have your own well, you're still pulling on the same source of water as everybody else, which seems to be, you drive along and you see somebody spraying their grass and say, announcement that they have their own well.
Yeah.
Or, I can imagine when I put a heat pump into my house this summer, and I would love to have a video that said it was about potential heat pump installation problems.
Well, we
Do you
want
have some of those?
to inspire
I sure do.
not to put them off.
We had a bedroom wall that had to be cut out in order to get an old handler out of the wall before we could use the new heat pump, because the heat pump worked on it just had to be replaced, and they built it into the wall.
Yeah, that's what a Sawzall is for.
That's right.
You had to do a little cleaning up afterwards, I guess.
Well, nobody talks about these small details that have to be dealt with in addition to getting a heat pump.
Yeah. Okay. What are we at? We're at 4:46.
Yeah. have a look. We have, we're 15 minutes left, right? I'm just looking at the
Yeah.
agenda.
Okay, let's move right along. Are we done with number 9 for now?
Yes.
Okay, so the 10th item on the agenda was to speak to ideas for distribution of the CSEC poster and determine if we needed to, it in doing any targeted placements of the poster. Like we were going to take it around to some real estate offices. Does anybody know if the CMLP poster got put in realtor offices at all? Jan would probably know, but I haven't talked to her about it. Has anybody?
I could ask Jan if they did that.
Do we want to take, right now there's a pile of posters in Kate's office. And the question is, can somebody make it their business to make a list of, we need to identify where we want to place them.
No. I don't know. I'm not really excited about doing any mailings or anything.
No, not mailing.
Placements.
It's tough because nobody goes in a place anymore, right? I mean,
Right.
and they're not waterproof, so we can't put them outside.
I mean,
Like-
brokers, if, you know, when brokers are still working, but I don't, people probably don't meet. I mean, the home prospective buyers probably don't meet in the broker's office.
Right.
We have a COVID
The
block.
broker might be persuaded to, you know, hand one to a new customer, but I
I
suspect.
think most real estate brokers, if you brought them a pile of these pamphlets, they'd say, thanks very much, and they would go in the trash in about 5 minutes. I don't, I'm a little cynical there.
I think they end up in a pile on the table and totally ignored, but.
Isn't there a group that sends mailings to new residences, it's like a newcomers?
Concord newcomers, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, maybe get in touch with them.
Well, that's a good idea.
Is this something that it's already been paid for?
Well,
The flyers or pamphlets or
No,
posters?
mailing, because I talked to Kate about the idea. Is Kate still on?
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Speak to her a minute about the cost of mailing. You were saying to me that you really don't have a budget to mail these out.
Yeah, it's very expensive to do a townwide mailing. And we don't have enough for townwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, in places like
Is the broader implement.
they're all closed.
I mean, we could email the PDF to people too, easily. I mean, we just have to know who to mail to and how to have an engaging conversation. Maybe we try to identify an email list of people that we could imagine might come to the first, if we put out a seminar series of 8 or 16 sessions that we would want to promote to, and we'd send them the poster ahead of time.
No,
We could also put posters in store windows that even if you're not going in the store, people are going for walks and would stop and look at a poster posted at the 5 and Dime. Or
Yeah.
well, they're kind of two-sided, trifold. I'm not sure how well they go up.
No, there's big posters too. There's big posters.
There's big posters. Okay, you know, I haven't even seen these things.
I know, they're in my basement. With the big, yeah, sitting there.
Okay.
So I sort of think we should make progress with the video series, work hard on that, and have an outreach at the right time when we're launching the video series, and somehow couple PDFs of the posters with that, and try to hit as many channels as we can, rather than do this and then totally separately, 8 weeks from now, do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. The timing has to be, it all has to come together so that it's a cohesive campaign, right? And that it makes sense. You're not seeing something in isolation. I completely agree with you. So I
Well,
think
one thing-
these are good ideas, but we roll them out when we're doing this, the webinars, you know, maybe this is September or October plan.
when we do the videos, we could, start out with an image of the poster
Mhm.
and then sort of, okay, we're going to focus in on this topic and this
Ah,
webinar.
that's nice.
Yeah.
There's your opening scene in your video, Janet.
Okay, I have to have
Exciting music.
a copy of the poster though.
Maybe in the beginning, maybe in the beginning of each of the videos that we create, we have yourself holding the poster up so that people can see it in the video and saying, we're going to address a certain part of this video tonight, and this is what we're going to talk about. But this is where it's rooted off of.
I don't think I really want my me holding it up. I want it more focused on the poster.
But yeah, I like the idea of kind of showing the overview so that it all makes sense, right? You know, this week we're doing this component, and then next week, the sort of the zoom out and then the zoom in. I mean, that just makes sense. It all comes together.
We need a theme song though.
I
A
also,
little theme music
Ah.
or a little something to make all these videos sort of branded. And
Okay.
so the idea of the poster as a starting is great. And then, so I guess we have to think about.
Okay.
You're the musician, Brad.
I don't
You're the
know how
musician
to do-
playing
not-
your trumpets.
There's a good song by Madness.
I also think that if somebody's holding the poster and you're seen in the picture with it,
Yeah.
it creates engagement that is not just technical, it's personal connection. And
Right.
that's what a lot of this engagement in the town is about, to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I think you will appear later on in the annex, and
right.
maybe you could have a little cameo picture in the corner or something. But I don't know.
We'll see. We'll play around with it.
So, Doug, I think we should save a few minutes to ask Tanya if she came to the committee with a request or an issue or something, because nobody in their right mind would come out of interest to listen to this.
Thank you
But-
very much. Yeah, no, I was, it was general interest, except two things. One is that anything that stresses natural resource preservation is close to my heart and Mark.
Tanya, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to scoot, guys. So I'll
Okay.
see you up.
Thanks a lot, Sharon.
I actually do too. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Terry.
The other thing about the poster idea, I was thinking the Concord bookshop maybe, and also different restaurants which are starting indoor dining. And about the Article 40, oh, Terry just left. What I observed in the last select board meeting between the FinCom and the select board is that the town moderator actually said with the postponed articles, it was going to be as they came to the article, that she was going to say there is no motion. And I think in those articles, usually somebody can take it up if they want to. I know the arguments about it needing to be a short meeting and that it's a subject that needs broad discussion and should not be rushed through. I respect those, but I observed that on June 29th, when they were discussing, the select board was discussing their positions or how essential each article was, there was a question raised by Linda Escobedo about the development community being concerned about costs. So was there or was not there a revision? And they didn't know. And then the next thing I saw that it was announced as no motion on July 13th. So I don't know if they did or did not discuss it further on July 6th. I have not followed that meeting yet, but so that was the progress on that as I followed.
What was this? Just to clarify what you said, you said there was no motion on July 13th forward the Article 40, or are you speaking of other articles?
No, I'm talking about Article 40. On July 13th, it was announced during the meeting, I think by Mike Lawson, that Article 40 was a no motion. And clarify that it was a select board article, but what I observed before that was when they were discussing articles on June 29th, there was a question about costs to developers. And there was a July 6th meeting in between where I don't think articles were to be discussed. I think the logistics of town meeting was discussed, but it may have been mentioned in that meeting, the in-between process, but I'm not sure. Yeah. And as far as the music for the videos goes, that's great. I'm also a musician and I can.
Yeah, I was thinking of asking you to provide the music.
No,
I've heard you playing in the library before.
You have. Oh, thank you
Yes.
very much, Brad. I can send you a link to one excerpt if you like it, a Chopin nocturne type thing. Thank you.
Tanya, can I just ask your last name? Is it okay to put your name in our?
Of course, yeah. It's Gailus, Gailus. Although it is Bartevian when I give a concert, so Gailus is my on meeting.
Okay, thank you.
It's what when you give a concert?
I'm sorry.
When you give a concert, you use what name?
Oh, it's Bartevian. My name is Tanya Bartevian. Gailus is my official voting name, and that's what I use for town matters.
What did you say?
Are you done with your meeting?
No. Okay.
So that's I'll be happy to to send you a link if you want.
Okay, we're 2 minutes away from the ending of the meeting, and does anybody have any other things to say about anything that we've covered? Hearing nothing, I move that we adjourn.
Seconded.
I second it too, and wish everybody a happy, safe rest of summer.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll be in touch more as you're gonna send out the template, right, within a week or
We'll
so.
have a little chat, shall we, Brad?
Yes, we'll have a chat.
Okay.
We'll send something to Doug Sharp.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
and I'll send
And-
it to the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.